We've got a very special guest coming up, Dr. Brad Weeks. I've spoken with him before at a conference, The Right to Try. Great guy, lover of liberty. He completed his undergraduate studies at Dartmouth College then, prior to medical school training at the University of Vermont. Dr. Weeks worked in the Harvard system doing 2 years of research at Was he in General Hospital? Were you in General Hospital? Not the soap opera.
MGH, Man's Greatest Hospital.
Man's Greatest Hospital, Massachusetts General, and a mineral metabolism unit working on osteoporosis. In addition, he studied nutrition, acupuncture, massage, shiatsu, music therapy, anthroposophical medicine, and classical homeopathy. A charter and founding member of International Organization of Integrative Cancer Physicians, he is one of 3 doctors in the USA who is certified to teach insulin potentiation chemotherapy, IPT, to medical doctors. He's a pioneer in oncoimmunology. He has lectured over the past 5 years about the revolution in oncology, teaching that cancer stem cells should be the target for treatment and not the relatively harmless cancer tumor cells. Brad told me just before a year ago he founded the Washington Integrative Medical Association. Those of you who love health freedom, let me hear you. Health freedom, anybody? This is the guy for patients and doctors. Please welcome Dr. Weeks to the stage. Dr. Brad Weeks.
You are such a pro. I love it. Thank you all. What a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. It's a great honor to be here. And I have to apologize right off the bat because it's always quality or quantity. And I'm going to give you quantity today. I hope some quality slips in, but we're going to go through a lot of information. So for all of those who are watching this online, 500,000 people, pause for the slides to go to the references, because my goal is to give you the science which will empower you to know that what I'm telling you is true. I don't want to try to persuade you about each point as we go along. I want to just, in a way, inform you, and then you can do your own due diligence. But we're talking about corrective cancer care. Strike the root. Don't just suppress the symptoms. And it's a great honor to be here. So let's get started. This is what we're going to cover in the 45 minutes. We're going to define the cancer problem. And the issue, of course, which is unfortunate or tragic or criminal, is that political economic factors and not science drives clinical medicine. You've heard that from a variety of speakers already in the last couple days, but that's a shocking revelation. If you don't believe me, we'll go through some of the slides. And also, despite good intentions, oncologists are harming patients because all they can offer is the standard of care. And we shouldn't be settling for the standard of care. We should be trying to get tomorrow's medicine today. Secondly, we'll cover the revolution in cancer care. This is very exciting. We're gonna demonstrate that the goal is really to help the patient doctor her or himself and remedy their own cancer process. I'm going to describe something which is self-evident to any of you who've had cancer, and that is that cancer is a process which manifests in specific tissues. It's not a disease per se. It shows up in a disease form, but it starts as a cancer process, and we have to empower the patients. It's exciting to focus on the cancer stem cells and not the cancer tumor cells. This is what I've been lecturing on for the last 10 years. And secondly, giving up on chemotherapy and radiation because they make your cancer worse. That's Max Wicha calling from the University of Michigan Comprehensive Cancer Center. We'll go through that. Cancer treatment, the standard of care, makes your cancer worse. Shocking news. And lastly, I want to talk about inflammation because in a nutshell, here's the take-home message. Short-term, acute, local inflammation is immune-enhancing. Chronic, low-grade inflammation, such as what happens when you immunize children, is immunosuppressive. So you want to have inflammation working for you. You do not want chronic inflammation. We'll show you how to address that. And then the solution is, I coined the term years ago, sensible, like dollars and cents. So sensible treatment would be safe, effective, and cost-effective. That's what I call sensible. Detoxification is key. Anti-inflammation is the future of cancer treatment. I'll go through that. You have to rehabilitate cell membranes with good quality oils. I love the seed oils. You're going to hear a lot about whole crushed seed oils as opposed to extracted seed oils. And then talking about remedying the cancer stem cell. Now, not killing the cancer stem cell. I want you to be thinking about this as I describe cancer as cellular ADHD. So you have to understand the cancer tumor cell is simply confused. And if you were a teacher and you had an ADHD kid, you wouldn't take him out back and shoot him. Come on. So why are we killing cancer cells when we can be remedying the cancer cell process? So that's what we're going to talk about, and we're going to go a little fast. But first of all, this is something I asked my audiences over the last 10 years. Show of hands, please. Anyone who knows someone who was killed by cancer? Nobody. You still don't get it. So forgive me for your losses, but here's the real question. How many of you know someone who was killed by cancer in the absence of cytotoxic chemotherapy, cytotoxic radiation therapy, or immune-suppressing surgery? So the issue is, cancer itself is horrible, and I'm truly sorry for your losses and for the losses that are coming. This is a terrible illness process, but it's made worse by the chemo and the radiation, and here's why. Alan Nixon, PhD, past president, American Chemical Society, said, as a chemist trained to interpret data, it's astonishing to me, it's incomprehensible that physicians can ignore the clear evidence that chemotherapy does much more harm than good. Equally so, Alan Levine, University of California, San Francisco, most patients in this country die of chemotherapy. Now again, I'm not going to read all these slides because of the short time, but you can refer back to them. This is the argument that it's the chemotherapy which can be equally dangerous as the cancer. Here's Ralph Moss, famous as a cancer critic, saying there's no proof that chemotherapy extends life. And he says that shrinking the tumor is a big lie, that it's a benefit. Now, he's an alternative fellow, but how about the head of the Massachusetts General Hospital, Daniel Haber Cancer Center? He says tumor shrinkage, the gold standard for measuring a drug's effectiveness, doesn't always translate into longer survival for the patients. So a lot of what we pay attention to in terms of tumor shrinkage is not that helpful. Here's what's particularly irritating to me. There's a study that came out just last week on the incidence of chemotherapy given to people in their last month of life, and it's exorbitant. So here we have the National Confidential Inquiry into Patient Outcome and Death talking about the problems with inappropriate, at least 1/5 of the time the chemotherapy is given inappropriately, 1/5, 20%. A 6 to 12-month course of chemotherapy is not only a very unpleasant experience, but it has its own intrinsic mortality. And of course, here's the really important article. This is 2004 in Clinical Oncology, a conventional cancer journal. And it says that if you're in Australia, you get a 2.3% benefit. That's what chemotherapy gives you. And in the US, it's 2.1%. Now, I live on an island. If you were to come out to see me on my island, Whidbey Island, off the coast of Seattle, and the ferry guy said, I hope you enjoy your visit with Dr. Weeks, and by the way, you have a 2.3% chance of making it on our ferry. You wouldn't take the ferry. So why do we have this persistent chemotherapy? This is a riveting slide. In essence, here's the information on the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, and you see that the chairman of the board is a director of Bristol Myers Squibb, and the vice chairman of the board is the director at Bristol Myers Squibb, and on it goes. This is rampant. So these are damning information, and the concept is that political economic factors and not science drives clinical medicine. Oncologists, albeit well-intended, are harming patients, and the standard of care is determined by committees and not by science, and it's harmful. So let's talk about the rise of the medical-industrial complex. We know now that if the solution is not profitable, the problem doesn't exist. If the solution is not profitable, the medical industrial complex is not going to want to talk about that solution, because if it's not profitable, why bother? What we have is homocysteine, a very significant independent risk factor for heart disease. In 1983, Kilmer McCulley, who should get a Nobel Prize for this, discovered homocysteine and described it as an independent risk factor. And he was basically fired from Harvard because they had a lot of very expensive cholesterol-lowering drugs in the pipeline. And why would you actually pay attention to lowering homocysteine if it costs pennies, if it's sensible? B12, B6, and folic acid. is the answer to high homocysteine. So if we look in medicine in terms of cancer, it's the same thing. I'm going to tell you that anti-inflammatories are the main instrument to treat people with cancer in the future, and they're cheap as dirt. And so no one's talking about it. I should also say that anti-inflammatories are not talked about a lot because of what's called a narrow therapeutic window. Too little will not help you enough, too much can kill you. So they're dangerous drugs. Aspirin kills a lot of people. Tylenol kills a lot of people. So they have to be done carefully. Now, this is going to surprise you, but I'm here to tell you the war on cancer has been won. Would you agree? Wars are always waged for profit, if you understand the way politics works. I studied political philosophy in college. And since 1994, there have been huge profits to the medical industrial complex. The problem is the war on cancer patients has been won also, and my concern is that a lot of cancer patients are simply grist for the mill. They're like a renewable resource. This year we'll cut off your breast, get the conventional treatment, come back next year, we'll cut off the other breast. This has got to stop, folks. And that's because the war on cancer is actually the war on cancer patients. Now, this is a very wonderful scientist. There is not an alternative bone in his body. He's conventional as it goes. He's an august professor of internal medicine in oncology at University of Michigan Cancer Center. And he's on the National Cancer Advisory Board. And he says, Max Switcha says, chemotherapy and radiation will make your cancer worse. Now, I could just kind of stop the talk here, as long as you remembered that. Because your loved ones are being told by their oncologist they need to take chemotherapy. Do the research, folks. It makes your cancer worse. The tyranny of the standard of care is that thinking among physicians is discouraged. Doctors are now being trained to learn information and retain it and regurgitate it, not to think. Now, this was my first real guru, Otto Wolff, who was really the best anthroposophical medical doctor teacher. Rudolf Steiner's work, Anthroposophical Medicine. He said, Brad, to be a great doctor, remember, you don't have to know a lot, you just have to be able to think. So I learned how to think, and it got me in a lot of trouble as a medical doctor. And a lot of the doctors in the room would agree with that. But you have to be able to think. So here's some fun. Anybody recognize this woman? Not that you would. She's a poet. Edna St. Vincent Millay. She's a red-haired woman back in the 1919 and so forth. And this is a fabulous poem. She says, upon this gifted age, in its dark hour, rains from the sky a meteoric shower of facts, and they lie unquestioned, uncombined. Wisdom enough to leach us of our ill is daily spun, but there exists no loom to weave it into fabric. So I'm telling you that I'm now thanking Ty Bollinger for giving us a loom. And for all of you watching on the internet or watching the streaming videos, this is a man who had a lot of courage and set up and created a great organization, The Truth About Cancer. And now we doctors are welcomed here with colleagues and with patients and friends to think together. Very wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, Ty Bollinger and his team. The goal, of course, is to be co-learning. And here's the thing which any rational person would conclude. If you know someone who had cancer and got chemotherapy radiation and survived 5 years later, I'm telling you, it's probably despite the standard of care and not because of the standard of care. Now, I'm sure there are some friends who have oncologists who will be watching this and they'll take umbrage at that, but it's an interesting hypothesis because we all know about Bernie Siegel, Love, Medicine, and Miracles. If 9 out of 10 people die of the cancer, he wants to speak to the 10th person. There is natural healing. So please don't hurt yourself unnecessarily with toxic standard of care agents. And there are some exceptions, perhaps even testicular cancer and so forth. But for the most part, be attentive, be careful. Do not fear cancer, fear your oncologist. It's another take-home message. Just put that in the back of your brain somewhere. Now, of course, I would advocate for no fear. So I should probably say don't fear cancer, but we shouldn't be fearful in the face of cancer. We should look for love and support from friends and family, but we should take a rational approach. But the reason why you could fear your oncologist is 3 things. They are an uncritical instrument offering only the standard of care. And if they try to vary from that, they can lose their license. So you're going to the wrong person, really. My father used to call me seldom right, never in doubt. So I think about oncologists in that regard as well. Again, well-intended people. Secondly, their focus is on killing cancer, not on saving you. The operation was a success, says the surgeon, but the patient died. So the oncologist literally could say, I got all the cancer, I did my job, even if the patient is suffering terribly or dying. Because their job is to kill cancer, that's why they are not trained in nutrition. And lastly, the reason you should fear your oncologist is as old as mankind. Whether it's voodoo medicine or casting spells or witchcraft, someone in a white coat with that authority who tells you you have 6 weeks to live, that is assault with a deadly weapon. That has to stop. I like Miss Manners, right? Miss Manners, if you can't be nice, be vague. At least the oncologist could say, well, I've seen a lot of people, you could make it, I don't know, you have to be careful, but, don't buy any green bananas or something. All right, here's another take-home message. MD, I was very, very grateful for the training I had to become a medical doctor, and it used to mean something pretty nice, careful. Nowadays, it's really coming to mean marketing director for the medical industrial complex. So there's a lot of healers in this audience who don't have any degrees behind their names. These are wise people, and they're a great resource to you. Now, so a summary of part one, the executive summary would be that it's the political economic factors which determine life and death issues. Unsuspecting cancer patients need to understand that. And there's a conspiracy, really, of the Federation of State Medical Boards, CDC, FDA, and so forth, and they're really complicit in putting profit above patient care. And the standard of care is oppressive, and those who try to think and innovate will lose their license. So the people who are not physicians need to be supporting their doctors. Now, again, moving quickly with my apologies, part two, we're talking about this revolution. And this is self-evident to you. It's treat the patient, not the cancer. It's enhance vitality and so forth, remedy the cancer stem cells. And what we do is we look at corrective thought. I call that core thought. It's true, in my opinion, that thoughts create feelings. So if you have trouble with your feelings, change your thoughts. Light ahead is a nice motto. And then the epigenetic factors need to be remedied, detoxification. We'll go through these in detail. Here's a very riveting article in Nature 2015, January, and basically they say that chemotherapy selectively enriches cancer stem cells. Chemotherapy makes your cancer stem cells more numerous and more virulent. Now, I'm going to cover cancer stem cells in a minute, but this article basically says that when tissue is injured, we have our own native healing response, which is an inflammatory cytokine. It's like an SOS message, and it says, I'm injured tissue, be it bone or gastric tissue or what have you, I need help. And in comes these new stem cells from the periphery. They are recruited to become the injured tissue. That's the way we heal. It's miraculous, fearfully and wonderfully made. Now, imagine if you have a very discrete tumor in your breast and you get chemotherapy or radiation. What do? You injure that tissue in your breast. What does it do? It sends out the same SOS message. And it says, hey, I'm injured tissue. Are there any stem cells out there which have not committed to become any final tissue that are willing to migrate and become more of me? And in come, I call them the undergraduates. They haven't declared their major yet. They could become heart tissue. They could have become brain tissue. What do they become? They become adenocarcinoma of the breast. And that's how chemotherapy and radiation makes your cancer worse. This was in Nature, a huge article. And so the take-home message is basically to take your anti-inflammatory so you can interrupt that SOS message. You can interrupt the recruitment of those stem cells and prevent them from going over to the dark side. Now, the cancer stem cells, your oncologist will say that's just a hypothesis. Well, it's not just a hypothesis. I'm not going to read these, but this is what I mean when I say you need to refer back to these slides. Each of these is a treasure chest of data which will help you understand that your oncologist either is not keeping up on the literature or isn't paying attention. So we also know, I'm going to use the laser here, these two people, Robert Weinberg and Irving Wiseman, these are the giants in oncology today in America. All of your oncologists have studied under or studied their work. These are the most respected oncologists in America and perhaps the world. And they are saying it's, you got to pay attention to the cancer stem cells. Now, Thomas Pynchon in Gravity's Rainbow said if you can get people to ask the wrong question, the answer doesn't matter. Folks, the wrong question is, how can you make my tumor go away? The right question is, how can you remedy my cancer stem cells? So let's go into that. What is the difference between a cancer tumor cell and a cancer stem cell? Again, this is what I've been lecturing on for the last 8 years, so it's available, and I'll show you some of those references, but again, this is not something to read from right now, but they're here. They're for your availability if you buy the DVDs or whatever. These are the references which talk about the differences, but here's Cancer 101 for you today. It's a brief review. What is this? This is a hornet's nest. Now, I'm a beekeeper. I was a beekeeper before I was a medical doctor. So I don't really like hornets, right? But it serves a purpose. It's like a tumor. Do you see the shape? We could imagine that being a tumor in an arterial bed, right? So think of the hornet's nest as the tumor for this metaphor. And what's this? This is a very mean hornet that's coming after you. That's going to be the cancer stem cells for the purposes of this discussion. Now, I got to tell you, many people can live for years and years with a hornet's nest in their tree, just the way many people can live with breast cancer for years and years. It's the metastatic process that kills you, rarely, if ever, the original tumor. So there's that hornet's nest. Now, I'm a kid. I used to throw baseballs at hornet's nests, right? And that never ended well. And that's what happens when you use chemotherapy or radiation on a tumor. You release the cancer stem cells. That's the metaphor I want you to consider. What is a cancer stem cell? It is the instigator. It is the person that creates the upset. Imagine a riot in your town square. There was a ringleader. That is the cancer stem cell. They make the cancer come back. What is the cancer tumor cell? It is an innocent bystander. It's a cell which just kind of got swept up in this cancer process. It is not the target. And what happens is, and like I said, cellular ADHD, it's doing its best, it's under the influence. And if you go attack the tumor, you just release all those hornets. Now, what is a tumor? A tumor is a benign or malignant group of proliferating cells, less than 1% of which are dangerous. Less than 1%. Only 1% of a tumor can metastasize. I'm going to go through these quickly for time. But even Dr. Murray Brennan of this Sloan Kettering Institute said very few people die of the primary tumor. It's the cancer they said to have. It's the metastatic process that kills them. Now, what metastasizes? Only cancer stem cells. Okay? This has been known for a long time. And they resist chemotherapy. They also resist radiation therapy. Cancer stem cells are made more numerous and more virulent by chemo and radiation. And yet, there's all sorts of ways you've heard this weekend of people who are very effective at killing tumors, killing cancer. I respectfully disagree. Now, let's go to the specifics. Why should you fear an oncologist? Here's an example. Paclitaxel, which is a chemo drug, it induces a strong inflammatory response and enriches the cancer stem cells. That's saying paclitaxel makes your cancer worse. Or this one. You can have a cyclophosphamide, another chemo drug. It enriches the cancer stem cells. Okay? So it's not a hypothesis. It's not a theory. And here's Dr. Lee, who says enrichment was documented and chemotherapy increases the number and the virulence of the hornets in your immune system. Okay, Max Witcher again, he says the problem with chemotherapy is that when you're killing the tumors, the cancer stem cells are being stimulated to grow. Again, this gentleman is a brilliant scientist. I've been on the phone with him many times. He's very generous with his time. He is leading the revolution in cancer care, and it's anti-inflammatories. The standard of care undeniably harms patients. It increases morbidity and mortality, but increasingly, we're knowing that it harms patients more than it helps them. And it's time for a change, and here's the good news. Cancer stem cell drugs are becoming profitable. So now, the number one rule of the medical industrial complex, it's not a problem if it's not remunerative, if it's not profitable, is being met. By the way, Max Witcher says it is lifetime, and he's not a spring chicken. They'll no longer be using chemotherapy and radiation. That deserves, I think, an applause for that prospect. Now, money is coming into the cancer stem cells. Just Google cancer stem cells, and you'll see that Forbes recently gave $17.5 million to Max Witcher's organization. Oncomed Pharmaceuticals, one of the companies doing cancer stem cells, the stock exchange is bullish about it. There's even this kind of a thing where you have all sorts of, I think to get this publication was $4,000, but it's an industry overview of cancer stem cells. Your oncologist may not even know what a cancer stem cell is. And this industry is growing up, and as soon as it's profitable to treat cancer stem cells, they're going to shut down chemo and radiation, and they're going to be giving you cancer stem cell drugs. Now, that's the future of cancer care. I've talked about the Cordelia effect, which is don't kill the messenger, take the message and change your lifestyle. And corrective cancer care is what we've done at our clinic for many years, detoxification and such. So I'm just going to go through that kind of quickly. But to remind you, cancer is a systemic process which manifests in specific tissues for specific reasons. And we have to make sure that the tumor is understood to be the symptom and not the cause. So if you and I were hiking in the woods and we came to this tree and I pulled out of my backpack, if I pulled out a nice sledgehammer and knocked this mushroom off, how many people think I would have cured the tree of mushroom-itis? And yet we cut off breasts and are told we got it all. Okay? This mushroom is a symptom of a process. It's the same with your tumor. Does that make sense? Okay. The symptom is a healing gesture. The father of homeopathy, Samuel Hahnemann, said this. It's a fabulous thing to remember. The symptom is a healing gesture. If you haven't heard of Stephanie Seneff, you need to. She's doing great work at MIT, and she says that the tumors are adaptive. The cancer is a beneficial process to soak up all the extra glucose from all the donuts you're eating. And she says this is one reason why the tumor is part of the solution instead of part of the problem. This is an MIT scientist. So we have to think about things differently. I love Tom Robbins' novels. Half Asleep in Frog Pajamas. There's one of his characters is a brilliant Japanese doctor, and the press is interviewing the doctor, and they say, how are you going to kill the cancer in this person? He says, why do you always talk about killing cancer? He says, my method is not warfare. My method is to pacify, to make friends with the tumor, to make friends with cancer. Change your friend's diet. Teach your friend good manners. It's up to you to do that with your cancer. You can't give that to an oncologist to do, right? So it begins with no fear. Now, Inflammation 101, you know about this quickly, so I'm going to go through quickly. It's on the basis, it underlies all chronic degenerative illnesses. Inflammation also, and this is an important message, it drives all psychiatric illnesses. It's very important. Now, when you give someone with autism or schizophrenia or anxiety an anti-inflammatory, it's like using the windshield wiper driving in a rainstorm. All those inflammatory cytokines in the brain are fixed. So anti-inflammatories are key. Depression is an inflammatory process, but again, the therapeutic window. If you give too much or if the patient takes too much, it's a dangerous drug. How dangerous? I'm going to go through am I going to get to this? Well, we're going to come to a slide in a minute, but the 1917-1918 Spanish influenza, which we were told was so virulent, can you guys guess what new drug was just introduced in the market that time? Aspirin. And I'm here to tell you that the research now says that it was not a virulent epidemic, that was iatrogenic murder of thousands and thousands of people by overdoses of aspirin. So we'll come to that slide in a minute, but I wanted just to make sure you understood that, in my opinion, anti-inflammatories can be dangerous. That's why we recommend whole crushed anti-inflammatory seeds. If you eat the whole food, you're not getting into the problems you get in with over-the-counter drugs. This underscores the key thing about inflammation. Please remember that there's local versus systemic, and local inflammation remedies cancer. That's why you can have targeted infrared and so forth. But systemic inflammation fuels the cancer. It's not good or bad. Acute versus chronic. Acute inflammation enhances the immune function, and chronic inflammation destroys the immune function. This is just some benefits of inflammation. You all know about this. But the one thing is that it recruits healing by recruiting the new stem cells. And here are some of the localized pro-inflammatory agents which are beneficial. That would be things like honeybee venom, which I've done for 30 years, prolotherapy, hyperthermia, trauma, and so forth, different compresses. And systemic pro-inflammatory agents, which are bad for you, would be the glyphosates and the food additives and so forth, junk food. Synthetic patented anti-inflammatory agents like cortisone are immune suppressive. Non-steroidals can destroy your kidney and your liver, but the side effects of the anti-inflammatory agents can also be lethal. Gastrointestinal bleeding, liver failure, and such, overdose. This is a slide that you can maybe take a photograph of, because this is pretty impressive. The influenza, they did the research. They exhumed a lot of bodies. They found pulmonary edema. They found bleeding into the lungs. These people were killed by well-intended doctors. That's the Spanish influenza, death from aspirin. So I'm going to go quickly now, but this is commonsensical. Here's some bee venom work, which we can talk about at another time. But bee venom offers both local and systemic. And so here we have an example of bee venom for prostate cancer, working in its anti-inflammatory mechanism. This is published in Prostate in 2011. Poison is a matter of dosage. So anybody wants to give you a poison, whether it's a homeopathic remedy, the FDA is now trying to shut down homeopathic teething tablets for kids because it has belladonna in it, but it's a tiny dosage. It's not problematic. But I like to remind people that poison is a matter of dosage, and only Mae West said too much of a good thing is wonderful. This is a picture that she signed for me. It's one of my prized possessions. Now, people asked in some other lectures, what are the markers you follow and so forth? If you have cancer, follow the inflammatory markers and the cytokines, and here's a list of them. I like to try to empower the patient. We talked about love, medicine, and miracles, exceptional cancer patients. Light ahead, try not to have fear. What is cancer? Otto Warburg, the PhD and the scientist who gave us, who earned the Nobel Prize, he also said that cancer is a suffocation of the tissues. So remember this. Cancer is the laughing that has not been laughed. It's the weeping that has not been wept. You've heard that theme in the last couple of days. Forgiveness came out this morning, how important forgiveness is. These are emotions. You're in control of your thoughts and your feelings. So I think doctors should help patients feel more love, more enthusiasm, more compassion, and more meaningful engagement. So to summarize, the standard of care is not scientifically valid. There are better options which exist. Local inflammation good, systemic inflammation bad. Be careful with anti-inflammatories. And these are 4 questions which you should ask your oncologist. Why are you not recommending any safe anti-inflammatories? Number 2, why do you offer we or us chemotherapy patients candy and cake and cookies after chemo, telling us that any calorie is a good calorie? What will you do to enhance my health while you try to kill my cancer tumor cells? And most importantly, what is your treatment going to do to my cancer stem cells? And you're going to get either a deer in the headlight, blank look, or you're going to get a, darn it, I'm busted look. But you have to know these questions. Okay, one thing about the standard of care, they say do not fast before chemotherapy. That's the standard of care. But if you think and you do the research, you see that fasting actually makes cancerous cells more susceptible to chemotherapy. So if you're going to do chemotherapy, go in fasting. Secondly, any doctor who has you on an opiate has given up on you, because opiates suppress the immune system, which is really your lifeline if you have cancer. Better to give methadone. Great pain relief, but it's usually used for drug addicts. The doctor will say, it's not the standard of care. I can't give you methadone. You're not a drug addict. You say, give me something which helps my pain but doesn't suppress my immune system. Again, standard of care is there, but we have to be able to get past it. Now, Sensible detoxification. This is going to be a relatively quick summary, again for time's sake, but you have to start by taking out the trash, and then you have to nourish yourself. And we have drainage routes. I was trained as a classical homeopath. Urination, defecation, respiration, perspiration, and then for women, menstruation. You have to let all of those systems be working. Zeolite is something we use a lot of. Most zeolite is junk. I really appreciate Mike Adams having done an excellent work as the health ranger to really point out that most zeolite still has heavy metals in it. And it only works between the mouth and the anus. It's like bentonite clay. It doesn't get absorbed systemically. But we have a product called Dr. Detox, which is revolutionary. And this is what all the cancer patients I know are on this product, because this product actually is tiny. It's very strong at binding toxins of all kinds, and it clears out through the blood-brain barrier. It goes through all tissues in the body. And I'm happy to say that when we sent it to Mike Adams, he said to me just last night, he said, "Brad, your zeolite product, Dr. Detox, is the best I've tested." And then he smiled and he added, "by orders of magnitude." So I'm very proud of that. This product is a great detoxing agent. It fulfills the promise of zeolite. We've all been taught to eat organic food, but I'm here to say that glyphosates are far more dangerous than non-organic food. You have to get the glyphosate out. The molecule, does anybody know Professor Don Huber? He's an emeritus professor of plant pathology at Purdue. He's the world authority on glyphosates. He's a brilliant elderly man, a professor. And he said that the molecule is the best remedy he's found to bind to and inactivate and solubilize and excrete toxic glyphosates. So I don't want you to be afraid when you come to a conference like this and hear all the bad news. I want you to know that there's some good solutions. The future of cancer therapy is going to be anti-inflammation. These top two right here, this is Max Wich's drugs. These are anti-inflammatories, but there's a lot of other anti-inflammatories. And now I'm going to run through this quickly. Come back to these. These are examples of every cancer which is driven by inflammation and is treated by anti-inflammatories. Okay, so you pick your cancer. Colon cancer, driven by inflammation. Colon cancer, treated effectively with anti-inflammatories. I only have about 7 minutes, so that's why I'm going to go through these, but they're there for you. Melanoma, driven by inflammation. Melanoma, treated by anti-inflammatories. And same with brain cancer. These are excellent scientific articles. Breast cancer, treated by anti-inflammatories. Pancreatic cancer, driven by inflammation. Pancreatic cancer, treated by anti-inflammatories. This is why I can tell you, prostate cancer, that the future of cancer treatment is anti-inflammatories. Bladder cancer, driven by and treated by, and so forth. Ovarian cancer. Forgive me for not giving you enough time with these slides, but I'm having a hard time forgiving Ty for he told me, "Brad, you're going to talk for an hour," and then he said 45 minutes. Black cumin seed, here's the fun little message. Black cumin seed is a powerful anti-inflammatory, and all of the references I just gave you, the anti-inflammatory agent used in those studies was black cumin seed or its derivative, thymoquinone. That's how powerful a food is, a seed. I love Joe Mercola saying his two favorite seeds are black sesame and black cumin. If you're not paying attention to black cumin seed, please do. There's other anti-inflammatory remedies for cancer stem cells. Vitamin D, phenylbutyrate. Many of you heard our great friend Stan Brzezinski talking about PB or phenylbutyrate. It's an anti-inflammatory. We use it intravenously. Okay, celery seed, quercetin, the list goes on. Here's the reference on the phenylbutyrate. It inactivates NF-kappa beta, which is an inflammatory process. Melatonin. Again, we're going to go a little faster for you, but vitamin D, antabuse kills, remedies cancer stem cells. Okay? Metformin, many of these. Okay, so the references are here, and the sensible solution is to eat the whole seed. So what's so special about seeds? I loved Sayer G talking about how food is intelligent. The seed is the most intelligent food that you can eat. This is my father at 62, healthy and active. At 92, his hair's coming in black. Okay? He was eating the seeds. Genetic microDNA and RNA. Another picture, black hair, 93 years old now, doing well. Inflammaging is the new phrase for aging. If you're aging, you need anti-inflammatories. We talk about a seed being the most nutrient-dense food on earth. We understand that it's a treasure chest. It's an embryo packed full of genetic spare parts. The husk is the most valuable part of the seed. That's why I discourage people from drinking extracted seed oils when they can eat the whole crushed seed. Life comes from life, says Paracelsus. If you want to feel alive, eat living foods. Think about a seed, as Thoreau says, or as Emerson says, the creation of 1,000 forests is in one acorn. Here is an MRI I love of the husk of the seed. It's like an antenna. It collects light energy. These seeds, again, quickly, 2,000-year-old, they sprouted because of the husk being able to guard the seed. So don't forget to eat the husk. These seeds, 32,000 years old, and they sprouted. Eat the husk. Here is a wonderful quote from Rudolf Steiner where he says, "In the seed we have the stamp or impress of the whole cosmos." A wonderful slide to read when we have a little bit more time. He talks about the seeds being growing in a vortex of light and life. Now, this is a Fibonacci sequence. This is a sunflower seed. These seeds are growing in a potentized space. That's why the seeds which grow on a site of wave compression, they get the highest frequencies, the highest intelligence of the plant. And look at these little trumpet antennae on the sunflower seed which attract the light. Fundamentally, we only eat light, right? We're light beings, we eat light. The seed is the homeopathically prepared potentized remedy which solves the problem of how life can reproduce itself. So the answer is to eat anti-inflammatory seeds. We know about Laetrile for cancer. Black cumin seed we've talked a little bit about. I'm just going to show that black cumin seed has all of these anti-cancer properties. P53 stimulation, P73, P10s, STAT3, and so forth. Food can be your medicine. Can you have your cake and eat it too? Yes, if it's made from seed flour. Here's some science which shows that your cancer drugs will kill cancer more effectively but with less side effects if you're taking black cumin seed. Okay? Same with radiation. It kills cancer more effectively and it spares you. So what's wrong with this picture? Here we have seedless this and seedless that. We throw away the seeds because they're bitter and they're indigestible. It's not a big problem. We know that, for example, seeds have more fiber, they have more protein and so forth, more oils. I'm going to be rushing here. There's more bromelain in the skin of the pineapple than in the fruit, but nobody eats the skin to my knowledge. We throw away the good part. The vitamin C in the orange is twice as much as it is in the skin as it is in the flesh. So this is a healthy food, eating the seeds or drinking the seeds. And don't forget the husk. Here's a picture of the immature seed, and then what happens? They put the lamination on. It's the most energy-intensive process to laminate the seeds. So eat the seeds. Now, I also tell people, I like to stand firmly on the shifting sands of science, meaning if I know something today, I'm prepared to discard it tomorrow. And I used to give people fish oil capsules or krill capsules. Stop that. Stop that. The fish oil is bad for you, and it takes, according to Brian Peskin and the PEO solution, it takes 17 pounds of fish to give you one pharmaceutical-grade fish oil capsule. In addition, Andy Weil says oxidized seed oils kill you. We heard that from Joe Mercola today, throw away your flax oil. It's the oxidization which is killing us. And the fish oil basically suffocates the cell membrane. Seed oils, by contrast, ripen in the heat. They're happy with that. Don't use adulterated seed oils. So here's a healthy meal, but what happens? You threw away the best part. You threw away the seeds. You can actually blend up the avocado seed. This is 1 minute after we cut it open. That's how precious the seed oil is. It's ready to go rancid. This is a recipe for a smoothie. And then I get a secondhand coffee grinder. I freeze the seeds, and then I blend them up and put them on the cereal or whatever else you're eating. No one will argue that this is the smartest kid. He's drinking directly from nature. But this kid probably lives in Miami. Doesn't have the choice. So we use a product called Sol, which is for regeneration and anti-inflammation. A product called Core is for detoxification and alkalinization. A product called Form for anabolic protein powder. And we have the world's healthiest coffee. Is anybody interested in coffee? Now, the Chardonnay grape, which is part of Sol, has anti-proliferative, anti-cancer, as does the black raspberry. And I'm going to go right through and say, because I'm terrified of Robert. One sole packet gives you 8 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables and oils. Core has the detoxification process. Form has the protein. And to see things in the seed, that's genius. Thank you all very much.
Dr. Brad Waits.